Morning, Pathophys. Chapter 9 intro today. Changing things up a little bit. I'm actually going to write as I talk. I don't plan on this being any longer than the last lectures have been. Everything's looking really good at this point as far as work goes. After this week, or maybe sometime later this week, I'm going to give you a schedule for the rest of the year, because we are at that point right now. Last year at this point I did it with Pathophys, where I broke down their last 4 weeks or so. I'm going to do the same thing for you, just so you know what you need to do and what your responsibility is going to be moving forward. Chapter 9 is in the nervous system, and obviously a very important system as well. For the second chapter in a row, we're not going to align the disorders or the project with the chapter topic. We're going to do something a little different, just so it gives me a chance to diversify the offerings that I can give you a little bit better, as far as exposing you to more diseases. It sounds bad. Giving you more diseases to learn about. So let's do this real quickly, and what I plan to do sometime later this week as well is to open up office hours. I tried to do that once already. I was still learning. I'm not going to make it mandatory, but I'm just going to be available. So if you have any questions about anything, I'll do the best I can to help you out with those. So the nervous system, when we look at the nervous system, basically it does three things. Right? Three things. It senses, it processes and integrates, and then we have a motor response. So, in a few words, to define arguably the most important system in your body, since it regulates everything that we do and what we are, we can kind of describe what it does and how it does that. It senses things. In order for you to be listening to this lecture right now, you have to have the ability to at least hear me, seeing me. If we were in the classroom together, there would be other things going on as far as perception goes. But again, we use our senses to detect stimuli, and that's the important thing that you need to understand. Sensation is the ability to detect stimuli internally and externally. Once we get it to where it needs to go, which is the central nervous system, we have to do something with it. We have to process it. We have to integrate it. Those are two different words. Processing means to make sense of it. I could be speaking in a foreign language or gibberish right now, and you would have no idea what I was saying. So you have to process the sounds that are coming out of my mouth and that you're hearing now coming through your computer, so you can make sense of those. Integration is the next step in that. Integration is taking what you have stored internally. I don't want to treat your brain like a computer, but in essence, metaphorically, it is. You have information stored inside of there, and what you do is you take what you're bringing in, that stimuli, and you merge it together. And when you merge it together, that's the integration process. You're making sense of things that you know. The words that I'm saying, they have meaning to you because you've heard them before, you understand what they mean. You weren't born with that ability, you learn that over time, but that's what your brain does. It stores that information. So when you hear the word nervous system or the words nervous system, you understand immediately what that means. Maybe not the depth that we're talking about it right now, but when you hear nervous system, you think, okay, brain, spinal cord, those type of things. Now, the last thing that typically happens, what the nervous system is responsible for, is responding to these stimuli. So as you hear, maybe right now as you're sitting listening to me, maybe you're jotting down some notes, or maybe you're just sitting back and relaxing, or maybe you're standing up to turn the volume, or you're turning the volume down or up on your phone or your computer. These are all responses. So if we were in the classroom right now, what I'd probably do is tell one of you to stand up, go turn off the light switch and come and sit back down, or just stand up and walk to the other side of the room and come back. And what I would do in demonstrating what's going on there is that you are sensing everything that I said. You heard it, you understand it, now you're going to bring it in. That's the second step, processing and integration. You understand what it means to stand up and walk to the other side of the room, and then you respond using nerve impulses, now going the other direction out of your brain and spinal cord and sending stimuli or sending nerve impulses to your muscles. which allowed you to stand up and go do the things that I asked you to do. So again, these are the three things that you need to understand about the nervous system. Now we talk about diseases. When we look at these different senses, processing, integration, and the ability to respond, motor responses, there are so many different diseases that we could talk about that affect some of these pathways, and we will later in the chapter. But today I just kind of want to introduce you to this topic of what the nervous system is and what it does. How does it do it? It uses a specialized group of cells called neurons. Neurons obviously have the ability to transmit nerve impulses, which are the information or the messages that our nervous system uses to communicate with other parts of the body and itself. Other cells in the nervous system that are very important, neuroglia or glia cells, which are support cells for the neurons. We talked about MS last chapter. The neuroglia, the Schwann cells specifically, make myelin. Excuse me. Myelin insulates the neurons or the axons so that nerve impulse can travel unimpeded to its target. Obviously, those glia cells are very important. They protect, they nourish, they do the things to allow the nervous system cells or the neurons to do the things that they need to do. As far as the remainder of the chapter, like I said, I'm going to get into how nerve impulses travel. I mentioned that a little bit last chapter when we talk about depolarization of the axal membranes, the neural membranes, and I might discuss a few other things about synapses. I would like to get in those topics a little bit, but I'll save that for next lecture because those are topics to themselves. And again, we can really use those to leapfrog into some diseases, talk about some issues with nerve impulse transmission. So have a good day. I probably will be back with you here in the next couple of days with another lecture. And like I said, I'm probably going to post a place where we could sit down together and talk, obviously virtually, and so we can discuss some of the issues that you may be having with the curriculum or B, just anything in general. Have a good day. Talk to you later.